So, folks, Edwin, as we all know now, the news coming down that Edwin Diaz out for the season after tearing his patellar tendon in his right knee in a freak accident as he was celebrating on the mound with his Puerto Rican teammates in the World Baseball Classic. And a lot of people have been back and forth on this issue about the WBC, and I'll give you my thoughts on it right in just a moment. But one thing people keep saying is that it is a freak injury. I'll say this. I'm going to present this to you. Here is this book. It was written by Devin Gordon a couple years ago. It's called So Many Ways to Lose. And in this book, every horrendous and awful thing that could happen to the New York Mets is detailed, whether it's Dwayne Sanchez in a cab, whether it's Pedro Martinez slipping on a bar of soap, whether it be David Wright's consistent back injuries, whether it be whatever it is. Anything that has gone wrong for the Mets has gone wrong, and here is another case in point. So it isn't just a freak injury, it's just the Mets being the Mets, because it seems like only the Mets this would happen to. No other franchise would have something like this happen to it. And I'm sure if this guy had to write an addendum to this book, this would be included in such a case. HarperCollins put this out. And keep in mind, this is about the player. This was a tragic thing to watch unfold just the other day in Miami. And to see his teammates all around him, all they were trying to do was celebrate a victory in the World Baseball Classic. I totally understand that. And to see him get injured in that fashion in such a strange way is truly heartbreaking. And to see the images of him having to be picked up and then carried and helped to a wheelchair to be taken out was heartbreaking. It really is, because this is a player who has done so much to turn around his career, not just as a pitcher, but also a pitcher in New York City. And he became the toast of the town in New York last year. It is truly a tragedy to see a player of such high stature and with so much promise and hope, to see this happen to him at this point in his career. Hopefully he can recover, and of course the surgery was successful, and come 2024, Edwin Diaz can be just as good as he has been the last couple of years next year. Now, I'll say this. I'm not going to go on a rant here and tell you that the players shouldn't have pride in playing for their country or for each other in this WBC. In fact, I think quite the contrary. I have no problem with the WBC from the standpoint of patriotism, for that matter. I, for one, my biggest issue is the fact of the timing of the WBC. I can't think of a worse time to have such an intense, competitive, and yes, even compelling tournament than at the start of the baseball season in March. March should be about team building. You should have all your players in camp, all 30 teams, and the focus should be about getting ready for the long grind of a 162-game season. We have heard guys like Max Scherzer say, I'm not going to participate in this tournament because I can't rev up to postseason type innings in March. Brandon Nomo, who signed a big contract with the Mets. This was before the Diaz injury, saying that he wasn't going to participate because he felt he made his commitment to focus on the Mets this year. Even the Yankees. Aaron Judge says, well, I'm not going to participate. He too signing a big contract. Kind of put the onus on the Yankees, saying, I don't know if they're going to want to send me over there. Of course, the Yankees did stop Luis Severino from going to the WBC. You can't tell me there isn't an owner out there or a manager or a general manager right now that isn't sick to their stomach with what happened to Edwin Diaz, especially with the Mets for that matter. This is the worst thing that every team fears by sending their players, and not just sending their players all over the place, all over the country, but also all over the world. And they can do nothing about it. There is nothing they can do. They are at the mercy of whatever happens. Now, fortunately for the Mets, there is a policy, an insurance policy that Major League Baseball has put in place, and the Mets get $18.6 million in insurance money covering this Diaz incident. But it's a steep price to pay to have your top players spread out, leave camp, and then participate in intense postseason-like games in March, when you should be focused on getting ready for the season. That's my problem with the WBC. I don't have a problem with the idea of it. I don't have a problem with the idea of having spreading the game and spreading the goodwill of the game and having other countries participate, so called. And that's not my problem. My problem is put the WBC, if you're going to have it, in November. And I know there's an argument out there. I understand the argument that, well, guys are tired. It's the end of the season. Most of the teams, by the time you get to November, haven't played for about a month. The season ends end of September, start of October. You only got about 12 teams that make the playoffs. And by the time you get to November, only 2 teams are standing. So outside of those 2 teams, everybody's had 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 weeks of not playing baseball. And you can't tell me that they don't have guys that could be ready to go out there and play in such a tournament. I think that it would be a goldmine for Major League Baseball, because not only will you be able to showcase, as they are now, with all-star players if they want to participate in November, but it would be a free agent showcase for minor leaguers, for independent ball players. Keep in mind, minor leaguers, their season ends in September, mid-September. Indie ball players end in early September. It's a chance to showcase those guys. It's a chance to showcase players who may not be affiliated at all or just trying to latch on somewhere. It's a great chance for teams, for fans to say, hey, let me take a look at what's going on here. This guy's good. This guy's good. Maybe it'd be nice to see my team go out there and get this guy to help us next year. It becomes a free agent showcase in that standpoint. It becomes both an all-star showcase and a free agent showcase. Move it to November, because right now, I understand that there are a lot of people watching in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Japan, and everyone's into it, everyone is enjoying it. That's fantastic. The players love it. They love to play for their country. Absolutely applaud that. No problem at all. But my problem is that it is the start of the baseball season. We're trying to get ready for a full 162-game season, and to ask players to ramp it up, even if this was just a freak injury, to ramp it up to this kind of level, I'm surprised there are more injuries. I mean, even Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers pulled a hamstring playing in this World Baseball Classic. Now, he's supposed to be okay. He's going to play be ready for the Dodgers opening day. The Mets' Brooks Raley, he suffered a hamstring injury getting ready for this tournament and had to pull out before it ever started, and he should be okay. Another Mets reliever that got injured. So injuries happen. I understand can happen anywhere at any time, but when it's happening with this tournament, it's a concern. So my thing is, move it to November, and you can go from there. An injury like this to Diaz, as horrible as it is, if the tournament were played in November, there would have been a chance that he could have been available in August. Or maybe it wouldn't have happened at all. Who knows? So it's an unfortunate injury for the Mets here on the eve of the start of the regular season. Now they have a lot of work to do. Let me just pull this up here. Mets injuries. Okay, obviously Edwin Diaz is out. The other significant injury the Mets have in spring training is Jose Quintana, who has a rib stress fracture, bone and graft surgery, and he is out until the middle of July. And he's their number 5 starter. So the Mets are right now without their closer, without their number 5 starter. They have a few other injuries to a couple other pitchers. Even Kodai Senga has gotten beaten up a little bit here in spring training. Tendonitis in his index finger, but he should be okay to go when the season starts. So it's not the kind of start the Mets would have liked, obviously, to go into the regular season with these kind of injuries. You hope there's no more significant injuries the rest of the way as far as the World Baseball Classic is concerned for really anybody. You hope there's no more significant injuries the rest of the way till the end of spring training in a couple of weeks, and that the Mets are going to have to find a way. They have enough talent to find a way to get through this and try to make something of this season. But not having Edwin Diaz for the entire year is going to hurt. Obviously, the first 2 names to jump out are Adam Ottavino and David Robertson. They jump to the front of the line here. Ottavino has had experience closing games. He has 33 career saves. But great year last year. You look at his resume, Ottavino has been kind of uneven a lot of times throughout his career. Maybe better suited for an 8th inning seventh or eighth inning spot right now for the Mets, as he would have been pegged anyway. David Robertson, however, is the key. And boy, the Mets are really lucky to have acquired him in the offseason because he has closing experience. He has postseason experience. We saw him in the postseason last year with the Philadelphia Phillies where he was very effective. 157 career saves. To me, he pole vaults to the front as the closer right now for the Mets until they can either A, find somebody better on the market later in the year, or maybe he's going to be the guy for the rest of this season. And that's what we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. I know that a lot of Met fans have been talking about Alexis Diaz, the brother of Edwin Diaz. Now, he had his first year last year with the Cincinnati Reds at the age of 25, had 10 saves, had a 1.84 ERA. I understand the Reds are a team that are not really going anywhere this year. There's no expectations for Cincinnati to trade for a 25-year-old pitcher who was very solid for the Reds last year out of the bullpen. That's going to be tricky, and they're probably going to ask for a lot. So I can't sit here and say, "Oh yeah, let's go get him." It's going to take a lot to go get that kind of player. So at the interim, it's going to be Ottavino. It's going to be Robertson at the end of games. Robertson most likely being the closer, you would think, and we'll see where it goes from there. And when we get to July, when we get to August, that's when the Mets are going to have to figure out, okay, do we like where we are right now in this bullpen? Can we add to this bullpen? Can we get somebody to maybe shore up an inning, like the 7th inning, 8th inning? Is there somebody out there with closing experience on a bad team that we can bring in here? And that's when we have that discussion again. I'm going to come back in a couple of days, give you my top, probably with a special guest, give you my top 5 keys to the 2023 season for the Mets. And obviously health was going to be one of them, and that's now one of your biggest concerns is health going into the 2023 season. Leave your thoughts below. What do you think about the World Baseball Classic? I know this is dividing a lot of people. What's your thoughts about the Edwin Diaz injury? And what's your thoughts about now the season without Edwin Diaz as part of the equation? Like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time.